Hey guys, Hop here. I am out at the range with one of my very favorite rifles, the Mk12 MOD Hop SPR. I built this thing to be a very accurate and enjoyable to shoot rifle, kind of semi-inspired by the Mk12 MOD H, which is a 16-inch barreled variant of the Mk12 SPR. You might remember that the original Mk12 MOD O and MOD 1 both use an 18-inch barrel, but the MOD H, or MOD Holland as it's sometimes referred to, is a 16-inch barrel. This is a 16-inch barreled gun, but other than that, very little about it is clone correct. Therefore, it's not really a Mk12 MOD H, it's a Mk12 MOD Hop, the HOPMOD SPR. This thing is incredibly accurate. It's also extremely cozy to shoot, but it's not very practical. This breaks a lot of the rules that I have for setting up a rifle. And if you remember the video that I did with Brass Facts talking about practical SPR setups, this does not check most of the boxes that we laid out in that video.
Don't have a flyer,
Yeah,
Hop.
it's very
A solid group. No flyer.
Okay, so a refresher before we start. If you haven't seen the video where I talked about SPR setups with Brass Facts, or you just forgot what it was about, when we talk about the SPR, we're not talking about a clone correct military Mk12 SPR. So we're not talking about the original PRI tubular handguards or the special suppressor collar for the Allen Engineering suppressor, reflex suppressor. We're not talking about flip-up front sight gas blocks or any of that stuff. We're just talking about the general concept of a more accurate 5.56 rifle with more magnification. And yes, 5.56 is probably an important part of that, because what we essentially are trying to do is increase either our precision or our range, but without detracting from just the general capabilities of a 5.56 AR. The reason being that you still want to maintain ammunition commonality with a team. Also, you don't want the guy with the SPR to be meaningfully inconvenienced. He should still be able to keep up with the rest of the team, move and shoot, do all the same tasks that they're doing. Ideally, you should be able to just give everybody on the team an SPR and it wouldn't really cause any issues. Maybe you're not going to do that, but still, that's kind of the idea. Fundamentally, what it comes down to is that the SPR still needs to be a fighting rifle, and this is not configured as a fighting rifle. It would take a number of accessories and part substitutions before I would consider it, an adequate rifle in that role. What this actually is an extremely accurate, very fun to shoot rifle that is very well tuned to be soft shooting and just really pleasant to get behind. But it's got a lot of things that I don't really like. So when we're talking about our fighting rifle, obviously we're going to want the typical, the big three, the big pyramid of weapon accessories. So light sling optic. When you're talking about an SPR, you want a magnified optic, something quite a bit more than, a combat optic, which could be like a prism or an LPVO or a red dot magnifier, that sort of thing. So more magnification, but also just more of the features that you like to have on a higher magnification scope. This has a 2 to 10 scope. 2 to 10 is a really excellent magnification range, but this is not a very excellent 2 to 10 scope. This is the Vortex Viper PST Gen 2, 2 to 10 by 32. This is just a lovely scope to get behind. It has such a big, bright, clear image, amazing glass. It's got a nice reticle. Everything about this scope is really, really excellent, except it's very, very heavy for a relatively low amount of magnification, and it also has some really killer faults. Mainly is that you've got completely unlocked windage turret. You do have a zero stop on the elevation turret. It's unlocked. I've never been as concerned with an unlocked elevation turret, particularly if it does have a zero stop. I've used this scope on a number of rifles. I always love shooting with it. It's just awesome. But sometimes the windage turret isn't where I left it. Also, I have had the set screws on the windage turret back out under recoil before, but not before it managed to turn itself a couple MOA. So I think I was like 4 clicks off, then it loosened up and was no longer usable, so I couldn't even dial myself back to 0 if I wanted to. I think I've got a clip of that somewhere. My hope is that the turret unlocked itself before it had the chance to click the actual adjuster. Otherwise it's going to be like, oh, look at me, I'm John Halo. So this scope doesn't check the boxes for a fighting rifle because it's just not rugged enough in that way, where I cannot trust the turrets, and that's kind of a deal breaker. Also, it's not ideal for an SPR because the SPR is probably going to be heavier because of the additional capability, longer barrel, stuff like that. So adding this much extra weight in the scope is a little bit of a killer. I would really like to have an offset red dot on here, as well as a white light, ideally a laser, but maybe just a way to aim passively. The ability to use a suppressor is pretty nice, and you're probably going to want a longer or thicker barrel versus a regular fighting rifle. So all those things are going to drive the weight up, and if you're starting with I think this is like a 27-ounce scope, plus we're in a nice thick QD mount, which weighs another, I don't know, 8.5, 9 ounces. This is just a really heavy optics package, and we still only have the, very minimal capabilities of a 2 to 10 scope. Oh, I like this scope so much more.
Is that a Viper?
Yeah. Viper 2 to 10. This thing's fucking great scope. I wish it had locked turrets. I would buy like 20 of them. Ladies and gentlemen, please excuse the interruption, but it falls on me to tell you this video is brought to you by Eclipse Armory. Eclipse Armory is an ammunition retailer. They support this channel by sending me ammunition so that I can do these videos. They're a relatively up-and-coming ammunition company, and they have chosen to support some pretty cool gun guys here on YouTube. So, if you would like to support them and you'd like to get some ammunition, go ahead and check them out. There's a link to their website in the link tree in the video description. Tell them I sent you. If you support them by buying ammunition, they'll continue to support cool YouTube gun content by sending ammunition to me and a roster of other pretty cool guys. All right. Thank you everybody for watching. Thanks for checking out the link, and thanks to Eclipse Armory for sponsoring this video. Back to the show. The thing that makes this a Mod H inspired rifle is the use of a 16-inch barrel rather than an 18-inch barrel. If you are setting up an SPR, you kind of have two objectives. One is increased precision and one is increased range. And they are similar in a lot of ways, and the stuff that you do to enhance your precision is probably also going to necessarily enhance your range. But 18-inch barrel is slightly more velocity than a 16-inch barrel, which can be useful when taking shots at longer range. You enhance the range of lethality with most types of ammunition, ball ammunition particularly, although it's not as far as you might think. But it also means that the round travels faster and will drop less over time. So it is useful to have additional velocity. You can, of course, just toss a magnified scope onto any existing 16-inch rifle, and it will immediately increase your ability to make precise shots and take shots at longer range. But if you are building a rifle to suit that purpose, why not go with an 18-inch barrel to get that extra velocity that you probably like? This concept, I guess, the 16-inch or the shorter even, like this could be a 14.5 or a 13.9, whatever. The idea of a shorter SPR is that you're more focused on the precision aspect and not the long range aspect. So taking, for example, very precise shots within 500 yards instead of trying to stretch your 5.56 out to 1,000. So you could call that the urban SPR. I think Brassfax is working on that concept right now. So stay tuned to his channel for an interesting build coming up. This is a 16-inch barrel. This is a fluted Ballistic Advantage stainless barrel. Gotta say, this would look really cool if it was a 14.5. It would be just hella flush with this handguard. And since the purpose of this rifle isn't to shoot extremely long distances, moreover just to be precise, I would see no reason not to just go with a 14.5. Especially because, kind of like having this thing suppressed.
Sure you don't want a can?
Yep.
Okay.
This thing does have a Superlative Arms adjustable gas block on here, and that is one of the things I would definitely need to change if I wanted to turn this into a rugged fighting rifle. Currently this thing is tuned so it's extremely soft shooting with 77 grain match ammunition and the suppressor. It doesn't reliably cycle lighter ammunition without the can on. Also, once it started to get a little bit dirty, I would worry about reliability, even with the suppressor, even with higher impulse ammunition. Obviously, I do have the option just to turn the gas back up a couple of clicks to get more reliability at the expense of more recoil, but I don't really trust adjustable gas blocks to hold up to field conditions, even assuming that they don't carbon lock at high round counts. There's also the very real possibility that your rifle's going to have to spend a night outside and it'll get moist and certain things will get a little bit rusty. And if that happens, I don't know, man. I just don't trust adjustable gas blocks nearly as much as some people do. Your mileage may vary. Other than that, the only thing I'd need to do to turn this into a fighting rifle is to replace the optic with something a little bit better suited for the task. Ideally something a little bit lighter, definitely something with a locked or capped windage turret. And then I would also add a piggybacked micro red dot on top for use with passive aiming, and also just generally a nice thing to have if you have a scope cranked up to higher magnification. A piggyback or offset red dot can help you sort of find your target, get coarsely aligned with it before you drop back into the magnified optic. I would also have to replace this beam only laser designator unit with something that has an illuminator. Ideally it would be the US Night Vision Designator V, the one that has the VCSEL based illuminator. That one still sits super flat, so it's not going to get in the way of your magnified optic. It has the great button switchology on the back, which is really nice. You don't have to mess around with the switches or anything. It's got a very potent illuminator. Then I would also need to add a white light, because that's one of those non-negotiables on a fighting rifle. Everything else about it would actually stay pretty much the same. I like the 16-inch barrel. I could go 14.5, I could go 18, whatever. And I also really, really like the stainless barrel. This is a Ballistic Advantage 223 wild chambered fluted stainless barrel. This thing is unbelievably accurate. At least more accurate than any AR I've ever built or shot before. This thing is pretty dependably sub-MOA using match ammunition, like AAC's new 77 grain match load, the one using their in-house bullets. It really is insanely accurate with that ammunition, and as well as pretty good accuracy with Federal Gold Medal Match or ADI 69 grain Sierra Match Kings, the stuff that I can generally find and actually reliably purchase. As far as the barrel goes, I would happily stick with a stainless steel barrel like the one on this rifle. I know that they have a reputation for failing at lower round counts, or the accuracy will start to suffer as the barrel wears out. So you get phenomenal accuracy when the barrel is still fresh, and then as it gets shot out, it starts to drop off a cliff a lot faster than a traditional, 4150 barrel, or especially a cold hammer forged, and especially cold hammer forged chrome lined barrel. But I really like that accuracy, and those round counts are still pretty high. We're not talking like 2,000 rounds where you could conceivably burn through it in like a couple of weeks. We're talking, I don't know, maybe more like 6,000 plus rounds, something like that, as opposed to close to or slightly under 10,000 rounds for a 4150 barrel, and substantially more than that for a cold hammer forged barrel. If this was going to be your only rifle and you were planning to do a huge amount of training, and then you were also going to rely on it as a fighting rifle, then yeah, you probably don't want to get a stainless barrel. This is something that I'm happy to shoot sparingly, knowing that it will last easily long enough if I ever actually need it for anything. It's not going to burn itself out over the course of a combat load, obviously, but if I was going to shoot hundreds and hundreds of rounds a month and then expect this thing to be fresh and ready to go at the end of a 6-month training regime, no, I don't think so. This rifle was also built with a lot of parts choices that are really just aesthetic because I thought it would look cool. It's got a stainless barrel, so I put a hard chrome BRT bolt carrier group in there, silver and silver. This is a gray or silver charging handle version of the Radian Raptor. Trigger in here is the Schmid 2-stage. It's the only match trigger that I care about. Also, it's silver, just like the bolt carrier group and the gas tube and the barrel and the charging handle. So the colors look pretty nice. But if you don't like silver triggers, they make a phosphate version of it too, which you might as well just get because, I don't know, is anybody like, oh, I really need a nickel boron trigger so that it's easy to clean? Just fucking wash your hands before you shoot, dude. Stop getting pudding all over it. I did originally have the Magpul PRS light stock on here. I thought it looked really cool with, the long, heavy stock and then the can on the end of the barrel. I mean, yeah, I thought it looked really cool. Turns out the PRS light stock is just not very good. It's too long. I don't like that it makes the gun that much harder to transport because it adds another 3 inches onto the end of the collapsed length. It's got a cheek riser, which you really don't need on a flat top AR, also because you have to clear the charging handle. The cheek riser's way far to the rear, and then the stock is really long, so it just ends up not being very comfortable to me. I like the scope bell to be right about at the back end of the receiver, and I adjust my stock to match. Don't need a cheek riser, don't need that much length of pole, don't really want to move my scope farther back, so yeah, PRS light, just kind of pointless. Also, it weighs just an outrageous amount. This is just a regular Magpul SL stock. The SL's got a little bit more cheek contact than a CTR stock, which is pretty nice for use with a magnified optic, but I don't really care too much. This optic is not mounted in a weirdly high mount. It's just a regular, probably 1.5 inch centerline height mount. So you don't need a cheek riser, you don't need a big balloon-shaped cheek contact patch on the stock. If you want to mount your scope super high, then go for it. It's going to cause all sorts of problems, but at least then you can spend a lot of money on a stock and tell yourself it's necessary. The other parts change that I made over the course of this rifle's life was that I switched from a LaRue SAT Slickatini to a LaRue LAT Lockatini, the M-Lock rail. The SAT was the one that has the machined-in Picatinny sections on the 3, 6, and 9 just at the front. I mean, nice because you can direct mount a 1913 Picatinny rail bipod. I guess you could more easily mount a flashlight if you didn't know that Arisaka exists and makes M-Lock flashlight mounts. I don't know, I just think it looked cool. But also, that version of the rail is even pickier about what gas blocks you can cram under there. So when I switched to the superlative arms gas block, I switched to the M-Lock rail. This is a 13.2-inch M-Lock rail. The SAT I was using was a 12-inch. Neither one is hella flush on a 16-inch barrel, which is why, if I really wanted to go for aesthetics, I would swap this for a 14.5 Ballistic Advantage 223 Wild fluted stainless barrel. And, oh man, it would look so freaking cool. Anyway, that's the whole story, I guess. I built this rifle because I wanted something that looked cool and was really fun to shoot, and mission accomplished. This thing is lights out accurate, incredibly soft shooting, looks awesome, although it could look cooler if I knocked 2 inches off the barrel, and I might. I'm tempted. But this is not an SPR the way that Brassfax and I have talked about SPRs in the past. It is vaguely Mod H, Holland inspired. But no, this is neither a clone correct SPR or a practical SPR. It's just a rifle I like. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like dumb projects like this, make sure you subscribe, because I have a bunch of AR builds, some of which are very cool, some of which are very practical, and never the twain shall meet. If you'd like to support me directly, you can do so via Subscribestar. There's a link in the video description. There's also a link in the video description to my Linktree page. Check it out. There's sometimes affiliate links, social media stuff, other things that you might be interested in there. And we'll see you guys next time.